Hey everyone, and welcome back to Upgrades for Commander 2020. I'm Jeremy Noell, and I'm here with Jonathan Suarez. And today we are going to be talking about the deck Timeless Wisdom. This is the blue, red, white deck, and I think this is probably one of John's favorite precons in quite a while.
It is. Cycling is that's mine. Everything about it, I love it. I think it should be, every card in Magic should have cycling. I've had this argument multiple times.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about the face card of this deck?
Sure. So Gabby Nest Warden. Oh boy. So I believe the name was an affectionate node to its creator, Gavin Verhey. So Gabby Nest Warden is 2 colorless and Jeskai. And this card, let's just. I can't pull it up on the screen. I hope somebody else is pulling it up on the screen right now.
Yep.
So, first time, each turn, you get to cycle for free. Any card. Doesn't matter what it is. It can be a 10 mana cycler. It can be a 15 mana cycler. It could be whatever you want it to be. And then, if for some reason you draw cards more than once per turn, you get to make free dinosaur cats. Like, I just don't understand how this card saw print. This is the most ideal cycling commander that you could think of. And it's a 2/5 to boot. It's got a huge, huge toughness, so it's hard to kill. I'm at a loss for words for this card.
Yeah, it's wild. I love it. I know you're going to love it way more. This is definitely in your wheelhouse.
2/2s. Why does it make 2/2s?
2/2s.
I just don't get it. But I'm excited.
Yeah. So for this, we each picked out 10 cards that we thought would work well with the deck. And obviously there's a little bit of overlap because,
of course,
cycling decks, there's not a lot of support throughout Magic's history for cycling comparatively. But there are some definitely good cards. And I think the first one that should just have been in this deck is Astral Slide. Yeah. I know this is one of your favorite cards. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
So Astral Slide is, to be fair, they did give us Astral Drift, which is like the new age version of it. But Astral Slide's 2 colors and a white enchantment whenever any player. So if anybody else at the table is cycling, which you'll be surprised how many different people cycle cards throughout a game of Magic, you can exile target creature from the game. And if you do, you return that creature to the battlefield under its owner's control at the end of turn. So you can play little tricks on people where you cycle at the end of your opponent's turn before it comes to yours so that your creature's out of play during your turn, and then you can wrath the board. And at the end of your turn, your creature will come back. Or you can just blink cards like Muldrifter or Chaomancer or get rid of tokens. This card does everything you want it to do. It's a fantastic... It was the namesake, this and Lightning Rift were the namesake cards back when this was a standard deck. So...
yeah. For sure. The next one is actually a new card. See, this is, part of Magic's history. Brand new card from Ikoria, Rael the Everwise. Yes. This card is very, very sweet. It's 1 blue-red, legendary creature, human wizard. So already I think this is going to see play as a commander pretty easily. It gets +1/+0 for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. So big plus to everybody who wants to play Spellslinger commanders. And then whenever you discard 1 or more cards for the first time each turn, draw that many cards. So, it's just, it's so good.
Discard. Not only cycling says discard the card.
It does, draw a card. Yeah. So not only does it double up on your draws whenever you cycle anything, if you ever have any wheel type effects, if you have a windfall, if you have a wheel of fortune, if you have any of that sort of thing, you're going to be drawing double the amount of cards that you would normally draw from that. It's really, really
even if you're not doing like the unfair wheel stuff, even cards like Cathartic Reunion or Thrill of Possibility.
Yeah.
Like just getting to net those, it's great.
All right. So yeah, there's a lot of advantages to Rael. Yeah. So for me, the next card that I think is a pretty good include in this deck, this is one that I've had in a couple of my decks that run white or are mono white, is Forsake the Worldly.
Good card.
This is really, really good as an instant speed, exile, artifact, or enchantment. Just gets rid of it, exile, it doesn't destroy it, just I don't like that, get out of here. Plus, has the advantage of having cycling 2. So automatically just really good in this deck because it's already got the cycling, but you have the added advantage of being able to cast it in the deck for getting rid of any of those really annoying artifacts and enchantments. Something that this color combination does have a little bit of trouble dealing with more than like green. White definitely has some good ones. I think this one is an excellent one in this deck.
For sure. Disenchant's a very powerful card. Exiling them and attacking on cycling, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, like exiling, just getting rid of it. There's this. You got, you know, a couple other ones in white, but most of the time you're destroying. Getting rid of it completely from the game, way, way better. So your next one is one of those annoying artifacts that you might want to get rid of.
This is definitely a card you would want to utilize a Forsake the Worldly on. So my next card is Almaret's Archive. It's a legendary artifact from Magic Origins for 5. And it says if you would gain life, you gain twice that life instead. And if you would draw a card, except for the first card you draw on each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. Another card like Noell, where cycling just gets crazy with this card. Drawing 2 cards every time you cycle, you're just going to go through your deck so quickly and find exactly what you're looking for every time.
Yeah, you're going to get overwhelmed in value really quickly with cards like Noell and Almaret's Archive.
Very, very quickly.
And another one that you're going to get overwhelmed in value is my next card, which is Chasm Skulker. Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and when it dies, create X 1/1 blue squid creature tokens with Island Walk, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on it. So not only do you get the advantage of every time you cycle, you just get to put a counter on this, and it gets way bigger and bigger and bigger. With those added things like Almaret's Archive or Noell, you get to add even more counters on it. And then when it dies, you get the tokens, which another thing that Gabby Nest Warden likes as well. So you probably got a little bit of mixing there as well. So
quick aside on Chasm Skulker. I actually died to this card at the Vintage World Championships one year.
Oh, really?
Yes, my opponent time twisted with Notion Thief in play, drew 14 cards, and smacked me with a 15-power Chasm Skulker.
That's excellent.
It was something. It was something.
I have definitely beaten someone in a game of Commander with one of the 1/1 squids with Island Walk equipped with a which one is it? The blade that gets you +1/+1 equal to the number of lands.
Oh, Blackblade Reforged?
Blackblade Reforged, yeah. That's it's a lot
Doesn't
of fun.
Matter what creature
there's
it
a
is.
lot of utility.
Yeah.
A lot of utility to this creature.
Sure.
And I definitely think it's a very good creature to put into pretty much any blue Commander deck. So your next one is one that I think is really interesting.
This card is really sweet.
I really like the effect of this one.
So my next card is Bag of Holding. 1 colorless artifact from Magic Course at 20. And whenever you discard a card, exile that card from your graveyard. So in this deck, whenever you cycle a card, exile the card from your graveyard. It also has the ability to pay 2, draw a card, and discard a card, so it has the loot ability. And then you can pay 4, tap it, sacrifice Bag of Holding, and return all cards exiled with Bag of Holding to its owner's hand. So this card is great. I have played this card on a lot of occasions. Mostly it's in like a discard, like my Croxa deck, for example, if I want to be mean. But this card is just a value card for sure. In a cycling deck, you're just going to net all of your lands back. You'll net, your good spells back. And the thing is, it's not an option, so you do have to exile the cards. So you don't want to get caught by a Forsake the Worldly without mana or Frozen Grip or anything like that. So you want to be careful with the card, but it provides a ton of value if you get to rebuy it. And even if you don't, get to play with it the entire game, rebuying it 4 or 5 turns later, you're still going to net a ton of cards off of it.
Yeah, especially in a cycling deck where you're going to be churning through them really quickly. So my next one cares a little bit more about the graveyard than it does with the cards going to the graveyard, and that is Mizzix's Mastery. So it cares about those cards, but it wants them to be in the graveyard. And this one is really, really sweet. I like this card a lot. It's one that says, exile target card that's an instant or sorcery from your graveyard. For each card exiled this way, copy it, and you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Exile Mizzix's Mastery. And it has Overload for 5, red. I think with the amount of cards that you're going to be churning through with your cycling, you're going to be getting your stuff like Forsake the Worldly and all that stuff through into the graveyard, and then just being able to all at once go, all right, I'm going to cast these 15 cards that I just cycled over the last few turns, and all at once. Everybody knows I like Villainous Wealth. I like casting a bunch of things all at once. this is definitely one of those really sweet cards. Bam, you just get a whole bunch of spells all at once.
You beat me to it. I was about to call you out on it.
Yeah, that's my kind of thing. Genesis Wave, Villainous Wealth, just as many times as I can cast a bunch of cards all at once, make the stack super confusing for everybody, miss all my triggers, and then everybody gets bored and stops playing.
Yeah. Which is pretty great.
Your next one is definitely one of the first cards that when I was playing, I saw and I was like, man, this thing is sweet.
Yes.
Not realizing that the mana cost was very
not realizing that the card is not playable at all back then.
Yeah.
So the next card I have is a very mean card. I didn't choose its counterpart in the red wheel, but Decree of Silence. This was a 6 colorless blue enchantment. That part is irrelevant. Don't pay attention to that part because you don't want to cast this card. It's way too mean. No one will like you. Just use its other abilities. But if you were planning on being mean and you want to put it into play and lose your friends, it says whenever an opponent plays a spell, you counter that spell and put a depletion counter on Decree of Silence. And then once it has 3 counters on it, you have to sacrifice it. But that's the mean part. We're not here for that. We're here for the free cycling part with Gavi. So normally this card costs 6 to cycle, which is a very fair mana cost. And when you cycle it, you counter target spell. Now, obviously with Gavi, it costs nothing to cycle. So it's a free Force of Will. Or, a Force of Will that draws you a card, not make you lose a life and discard a card. So that's the effect I plan on using with this card. That's the effect I would recommend people using on this card, because otherwise it's a pretty mean spell otherwise. But, in this deck, you don't want to pay for a Force of Will. That makes you discard cards. This card just lets you draw cards for free with Gavi, or other cards in the deck like New Perspectives, and there's just a bunch of cards that can make this card even just free is insane. Free counterspell plus draw cards, just too good.
Free counterspell plus draw card that's really, really nice. Yeah, especially love the artwork on it.
Coronas, it's great.
That's one of the things that drew me to it was Corona with the spears and everything.
Adam Rex, I think, is the artist. Yeah, he's great.
So my next card is another one that cares a little bit about the graveyard, like I said before, but is kind of a little bit of a non-bow with Mizzix Mastery, and that's Elixir of Immortality. And again, this is just kind of depending on how you want to treat the deck, I think this is really good for, hey, I've cycled half my deck into my graveyard, but I want to keep going. I want to keep getting those free cycles and drawing those cards and getting the value with things like Rael and stuff like that. With Gavi, getting those tokens and things like that. And what this does is it's a 1 mana artifact. You tap it, you gain 5 life, but then you shuffle it and all the cards in your graveyard into your library. So if you're just churning through your graveyard, or if somebody decided to bring a mill deck to your table, and you're just like, oh man, I've only got 20 cards left in my library, you just have this, crack it, shuffle it all in, and then you can keep going off with your cycling cards and getting the value out of things like Gavi.
It's also a defensive card. Like you said, it's a non-bow with Mizzix Mastery, but, maybe somebody tries to Bajuka Bog you, and you want to save all those cards. It's good at doing that.
That was one of my big things with this deck, is definitely there's a bunch of stuff in the graveyard. I want it staying in the graveyard, or I want to keep those cards in the game. And it's super good against things like Bajuka Bog, or like anything that's going to selectively target a bunch of your spells out of your graveyard and stuff like that. So
for sure.
Your next one is similar in nature to Forsake the Worldly, in that it's an instant with cycling.
Yeah. So my next card is a Gilded Light. This is a pretty unknown card. Wasn't really big even back when it was initially printed, but it's a colorless and a white instant, and it gives you Shroud. From spells or abilities. You just can't be the target of them. And it also has cycling. So there's a lot of very powerful cards in Magic. Whether there's some sort of blaze or I'm very old school as I say blaze or get to fire. Expansion, explosion, something that targets you. This card just stops that. And it can just Villainous Wealth. The day I get to stop your Villainous Wealth with my Gilded Light is going to be the greatest day ever. And I can't wait for it to happen.
Be pretty great.
It's going to be fantastic. But you tap out all this mana to cast your Giant X spell, and I'm just like, no, for 2 mana. And if you don't have the Giant X spell, you can just cycle it. And it just turns into another card. Yeah. So, great card, very good defensive card, very underrated.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also a very good budget, like not quite as good as something like Teferi's protection,
No.
but it's a very good budget version of something like that. It's not going to protect your life total getting attacked or anything, but as you said, anything that's going to target you that just gets right rid of it. You're just like 2 mana, bam, I'm done, and it's a quarter for this card. So my next one is another enchantment that came out recently in Improbable Alliance. This one's really sweet. It's a red and a blue, and it says whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying, and it also has 6 mana, draw a card, then discard a card, which kind of irrelevant in this deck for the most part, but it's really good with all your cycling because you get your first cycling for free with Gavi. You decide to cycle a second card on somebody else's turn, you get a 1/1. Every opponent's turn, every time you try and cycle more than one card, you get another 1/1. You can block with those. You can build them up just like you're going to build up your tokens from Gavi and then start, taking chunks out of people's life total. So,
and whenever your play group decides they want to metagame against you and bring their stabilizer so you can't cycle cards, you can just go ahead and use that 6 mana ability. Just turn through your deck that way.
Yeah. It's definitely not completely irrelevant.
No.
It's not going to be used as often if people are, letting you do your cycling thing, but there are going to be occasions where you're going to be like, all right, I definitely want to just pay 6 mana, draw a card, discard a card, get my value out of things like Gavi, get my value out of things like Riel, and go from there. So, and again, just another cheap option.
Yeah, for sure. So my next card, another pretty cheap option. I chose Glinthorn Buccaneer. This is another one of those cards that I kind of put like bag of holding into my Croxa black-red discard kind of deck, but it works fantastic in this deck as well. So this is a colorless red-red 2/4 hasting pirate minotaur. And whenever you discard a card, Glinthorn Buccaneer deals 1 damage to each opponent. So this is just your, all right, if this is out, this is my my Stinger, the 2/2 from Ikoria that's in the set in the deck already. Dathrin Stinger. Whenever you cycle a card, deal 1 damage to an opponent. Same thing here. It also just has a random tacked on ability of pay a colorless and a red, discard a card, draw a card. And you can only activate that if this is attacking, but still, it's just more card draw if you need it. And when you don't need it, it's just pinging the board. It's pinging everybody. Just pestilence, to players. So you're going to churn through a lot of cards, especially for free or very small cost, reduced cost if you have Fluctuator. And this is just the damage is going to add up.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a good include in this deck. My next one is the first land that I'm going for. And this is another one where, again, I care about things that are already in the graveyard. I want to cast these spells again. Or maybe I just want to do another cycle of a certain card and, have it go through and know that this is going to be things. So Mystic Sanctuary is, again, another one that's from recent sets. And it is an island, which is big bonus for any cards that are going to go get an island card. When it enters the battlefield, it enters tapped unless you control 3 or more other islands. And when it enters the battlefield untapped, you can put target instant sorcery card from your graveyard on top of your library.
Yeah. Very powerful card. Mm-hmm. Island that can be fetched up.
Seeing some play in some older formats.
For sure.
And it definitely works well if you put something in your deck that you really want to, cast again. That's if you want to bring back your Mizzix Mastery after you've cycled a bunch, or if you want to, recast something like your Forsake the Worldly or any of that stuff, you can just put it right back up on top and cast it the next turn.
Or cycle a card and just draw it immediately.
Yeah, cycle into it, draw it immediately, use it as the out that you need. So a lot of good options for there. Really works well with this stuff.
For sure.
So. And your next one is also another one.
It is. So my next card is Hall of Heliod's Generosity. It's a legendary land that taps for a colorless, and you could pay a white. And a colorless, tap it, put target enchantment from your graveyard on top of your library. So this deck, like we covered initially the Astral Slide. We talked about Astral Drift, Lightning Rift. This deck is while it has a ton of cycling cards, the focal points are enchantments. So making sure that you can get those back, getting back your Decree of Silence is a fun one to be able to do. You can actually discard your Decree of Silence for free with its trigger on a stack, activate Hall of Heliod's Generosity to put it on top of your library, and then draw it from itself. I'm pretty sure that works, if it is, which I think it is, it's pretty obnoxious. So there's some really powerful things you can do with Hull. for sure.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot you can do with it, and as you said, the deck really wants to focus on those things like Astral Slide,
Yes.
and Astral Drift, and stuff like that.
Yep.
So, my next one is just you know me, I like big dumb stuff. It's a big dumb monster that also happens to have cycling, and that's Adaro Wandering Monster. And again, this is another one you can get as one of the sweet Godzilla alternate arts. But it's a legendary creature, dinosaur turtle, and it has trample and haste, and cycling 1 and a red. And it says whenever you cycle it, shuffle it into your library from your graveyard. So it doesn't just go to your graveyard automatic, or it goes to your graveyard, but it doesn't stick around. So you shuffle it right in, and then if you've cycled a card named Adaro Wandering Monster 4 or more times this game, put it onto the battlefield from your graveyard instead. So you get an 8/8 trample haste if you happen to have drawn it and cycled it 4 times. The probability of that is kind of low, but it's always going to be really sweet that one time that you're just
It's going to be great.
All right, bam, right into play. Just get in there with an 8/8.
Yep. No one ever is going to expect that. You're just going to be cycling
No
cards.
one expects the Adaro.
The first time you cycle it for the 3rd time, and then you just draw it back off of itself for the 4th time, it's going to be great.
It's going to be so good. Yeah, and then this one is Godzilla Doom Inevitable.
Doom Inevitable.
Which is also
and that's one of my favorites.
It's so sweet. So
it is.
Your next one is one I'm also excited about.
Yes.
This one's from last year's.
It is. It's from last year's Jeskai deck. Yeah. So my card is Sabines Reclamation. This 2 colors and a white sorcery. Return target permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And if this spell was cast from your graveyard, you may copy the spell and choose new targets for the copy. And it has flashback of 4 colors and a white. Much like I just discussed about Hall, making sure those Astral Slides, Lightning Rifts, Astral Drifts are all around, Drake Havens. Those are all the cards that you need to make sure you can keep. Because you can draw a million cards, but you got to figure out a way to end the game.
You've definitely got to have a finisher, yeah.
So this is one of those cards that helps protect those cards once they're destroyed.
Yeah. And it's a super sweet card.
It's a great card.
Just really like it. My last card is one that I feel works well if you are drawing yourself out, or if you do get that one player who decides that they want to, have a mill deck, Director Kyle, anything like that. So, and that is Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. I know a lot of people are fascinated with like Laboratory Maniac as another option for alternate win condition. I think this one works really well because not only does it have that text on it of if you would draw a card when your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. It also has target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard, draw a card. Mm-hmm. So you could you could mill yourself if you wanted to get rid of a couple cards that you maybe know are on the top from various things, or if you want to get certain cards into your graveyard so you can cast something like a Mizzix Mastery, things of that nature, or you can just mill something, annoying away from somebody else who maybe has like a Courser Crucifix or an Oracle Modias showing what's on top of their library. And then alternatively, you just get to the ultimate, draw 7 cards, and have that emblem for the rest of the game. Or no, then if there are no cards in your library, you win the game. So it just works well if you've drawn a bunch of your deck and just bam, once you're done, you just win.
You can call it an emblem because by the time you're activating that ultimate, it's because you're winning the game.
By the time you get to 8 on this, you're pretty close to winning the game. So
for sure.
But yeah, and your last card is definitely one of my favorites. This is definitely a last but not least style situation.
For sure, this is one of the sweetest cards in Ikoria. It's actually wreaking havoc on Standard right now as well. My last card is Shark Typhoon, or Sharknado 6, depending on how you want to look at it. 5 colors and a blue enchantment. It says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you create an XX blue shark token with flying, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. And then it also has the Decree of Silence style kind of cycling effect of cycling X1 blue. Whenever you cycle this, create a XX blue shark token with flying. So if you don't want to cycle a bunch of cards at the end of someone's turn, you can just dump all of your mana in, cycle this for 4, 6, 8, whatever you have available, and make a giant flying shark. Absolutely love this card. I love the art. I love the reference to Sharknado. That's great. Horrible movie, but it's still fantastic that they're doing this kind of thing. I really love when they make these, these trope or direct like reference cards. These are my favorite things that they do.
Yeah, it's super super sweet. I'm very excited to see this in action inside of a Jeskai cycling deck, because just having a bunch of flying sharks coming at you, it's terrifying, but it's also just hilarious.
Yeah, it's great.
So
it's great.
All right, so that's 10 cards that each of us would add as an upgrade to the Timeless Wisdom deck from Commander 2020. John, do you have anything else that you want to talk about this deck at all?
I would only say that if you're playing this kind of cycling deck, to be careful. You'll be surprised how quickly you go through your deck. We both talked about a lot of cards to make sure to protect ourselves from either from decking or to win the game if we deck. Those kinds of things are great, but just watch yourself, because you're going to draw so many cards. And if you're like me, you're just not going to care and just keep drawing until you die.
And then you're going to be like, oops, I have 10 cards left, and I'm just going to mill myself out.
I'm just going to do it anyways. Just going to go.
just going to go out on my own terms. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming out and watching this today. If you're on YouTube, which you are, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And keep an eye out for our future episodes of Upgrades. Thanks, everybody.